good, y'all? We back. Much anticipated part two. Look, shit took me several hours to make and upload part one, and we ain't even get through all the teams that start with the motherfucking B as the first letter. So, we're gonna get through it, man. We're gonna see how many we can crank out today. As always, man, grab some popcorn, have this playing in the background while you study and all that. First up, man, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Look, last year's draft for the Buccaneers, it was interesting because they done went through the whole draft, right? But they brought back all 22 starters last year, including AB. So none of their picks from last year even really got a chance. But as y'all know, they didn't win the Super Bowl this previous year, so they didn't bring back all 22 starters. So now they actually have some holes to fill. So, look, they had the 27th pick in this draft originally, but they traded back with the Jaguars to add a couple more later round picks. So their first pick was number 33, first pick in the second round. And they took defensive end Logan Hall out of Houston. Whenever a team takes a lineman with their first pick, there's going to be a group of fans who wanted a more flashy pick. Okay, now to be fair, this was a pretty large group of people who wanted Andrew Booth Jr. or Nakobe Dean or Devontae Wyatt in the first round if they didn't trade the pick. But I still think the majority of the fans trusted the front office here because they haven't re-signed Ndamukong Suh yet or JPP, so there's a good chance this guy actually can help him out on the D-line this season. He's 6'6", 260 pounds, and last year, man, at Houston, he put up 47 total tackles, 13 tackles for a loss, 6 sacks, okay? I like this pick. It might not be, as the first pick in the second round, it might not be what you want to see, but I think it addresses a need for them, and I give them credit for that, okay? With their second pick in the second round, at number 57, they took an offensive lineman, Luke Godecki, out of Central Michigan. This is where fans, they got a little more pressed here because they have been praying for the Bucs to get a competent cornerback since the playoffs where Cooper Kupp and Odell torched them, okay? Luke Godecki is not a cornerback, but then again, they've lost a couple offensive linemen to free agency, okay? I will not fault a team for drafting a position of need. However, from what I've seen from both Bucs fans and independent other sources, both of these picks so far have been reaches, okay? Not off to a hot start so far for the Buccaneers. Third round, number 91, and man, I'm not really sure what to make of this one because they took Arizona State running back Rachaad White. At this point, I thought the Bucs fans were going to need medical assistance for not taking any DBs, man. It got rough at this point. And honestly, it made me start to reconsider if they actually needed a DB that bad because, I mean, clearly, if a team does not draft a position that you thought they desperately needed with any of their first 3 picks, maybe it's not a bit as big a need as you thought. But look, this pick doesn't make any sense from the standpoint that they got Leonard Fournette, right? They got Ronald Jones, and just 2 years ago, I believe they drafted Keyshawn Vaughn in the third round as a running back. Now, none of that is to say Rachaad White isn't a good prospect. I actually like him a lot because he was an animal last year at Arizona State. I mean, he had over 1,400 total yards and 16 total touchdowns. I mean, the boy averaged 5.5 yards a carry, and he can catch it out of the backfield. So he's a good running back prospect. I mean, he got drafted in the third round above some guys who were star, running backs last year. So, I mean, I like the pick. Let me rephrase that. I like the player. The pick is questionable. Okay? This would have been a really good pick for a team that shouldn't theoretically have 3 running backs ahead of him. Now, they have not made a single pick so far yet in this draft that I can just throw my arms around and say, that's a good pick. Okay? With that being said, At number 106 in the fourth round, they took a tight end out of Washington named Cade Otton. Bucks fans were just so broken emotionally at this point that there was just no enthusiasm for this pick. I think the happiest fan I saw in the comment section was like, okay, dot dot dot. So, that it was like, oh, who'd we take? Oh, really? Okay. I'm surprised that we're still watching by this point. Cade Otton put up 250 yards last year at Washington. So, yikes. But, I mean, tight end is a weird position anyways, you know what I'm saying? Some teams just pick random 6'6" power forwards and see if they want to try out tight end. So, I'm not going to look too deep into it as stats, I mean, they lost O.J. Howard. They haven't re-signed Gronk yet, so, I mean, tall white guy, go ahead. See what you can do. Bucks took a punter in the fourth round, so I don't know what to think anymore. We'll just breeze by that one. Reminder, they have still not taken a cornerback, but they finally did in the fifth round. Zion Mccullum. You want to know where he played? Sam Houston State. I don't know where that is. I don't know what division it's in. I couldn't find any stats. But the fans would have taken anything by this point. They could have drafted me right here, and if it would have said CB next to my name, somebody somewhere would have been happy. So, I don't know too much about this guy, except that he was a senior last year, and a Bucks fan did make a good point in one of the comments. He said that all of the Bucks picked so far, with the exception of Rachaad White, they're all seniors. So, meaning that they might not have a super high ceiling for a lot of these guys, but they may be able to come in right away and help a playoff team in the Bucks try and make one last Super Bowl push. So I do understand it now from a different perspective. You get what I'm saying? We're not going to talk a whole lot about their sixth or seventh round picks, so let's get straight into the grades. I saw about 40% of the fans by the end of this completely devastated by this draft, okay? I mean, they were just getting beat over the head and begging for mercy by the end of it, okay? And the rest of them, 40% of them were devastated. That's not to say the rest of them were happy by any means, okay? They were just trying to convince themselves that each pick would help them out in the long run. So, in my evaluations, I'd say absolutely nobody was head over heels for this draft, okay? And that's alarming. I understand the arguments, that most of these guys can play right away and fill some needs, but that does not excuse the fact that there were a lot of reaches. And I feel like this draft got worse as it went on, to be honest. I'm going to give it a C. That is about as low as I can go for a team that did address most of their needs. Okay? But I think they addressed their needs with reaches and questionable picks the whole way through. As far as my favorite and least favorite, wow, I have not got to a team yet where I've struggled to find my favorite pick that they made. The fans would probably say the corner in the fifth round, but I mean, I don't know where the hell his college is even located. I'm going to go with Rachaad White in the third round, man. He may not play a whole lot in year one, but watching his highlights, man, he's very exciting, okay? And he has a lot of upside in the future if they do decide to shake things up once Brady retires for real. And, you know, I think he can actually be pretty solid. Don't be surprised 3-4 years from now if he is their, number one running back. Least favorite pick, I'm going to go with Logan Hall, their very first pick at number 33. If you really wanted a defensive lineman that bad, you could have just not traded back and taken Devontae Wyatt in round one. If you were going to trade down, I would have taken Andrew Booth Jr. at number 33. I'm not an expert, but all the experts I do follow say that Logan Hall at 33 was a reach. So that's it, man. That draft hurt my brain. So to go through it, I'd say that was definitely the weirdest one we've covered so far. So hopefully it gets better from here. Next up, man, we got the Arizona Cardinals. So I mean, it can't get worse than the Bucks, to be honest. So let's start off. As we all know, the Cardinals, they used their first round pick not to draft anybody, but instead they acquired star receiver Hollywood Brown from the Baltimore Ravens. They reunited the dynamic duo from Oklahoma between Kyler and Hollywood Brown. So it wasn't a great fit in Baltimore, right? Because Lamar is not the best thrower of the football. He missed a lot of last season due to injury, and Hollywood did also have to shoulder some of that blame because he had drop issues, real drop issues. But with all that being said, he still managed to rake in over 1,000 yards last season and almost an exclusively running offense. He's a good receiver. And especially now that we know D Hop is going to miss the first 6 games due to suspension, they couldn't have known that, or maybe they did actually, but that adds more value to this trade. So a lot of teams would not trade a first rounder for any receiver not named Tyreek Hill, okay, or Devontae Adams, but I mean, for the first 6 games at least of next season, Hollywood Brown is going to be one of the most important players on this team. So I think it's going to be worth it. In summary, I think they made the best possible use of this pick right here. And the Cardinals fans loved it. I mean, the social media team, I counted, they made 15 straight posts about this trade on Instagram. 15 straight, probably more just later on in the next couple of days. So, yeah, I think they were pretty happy with it. Now let's get into their actual drafted players. And you'll realize the Cardinals had some huge shoes to fill, okay? Because in the last couple of years, just on defense, they've lost Hassan Reddick, Patrick Peterson, and just recently Chandler Jones to the Las Vegas Raiders. So they have had to get busy with, with their first pick in the second round, they took tight end Trey McBride out of Colorado State. Um, they should have just traded this pick away too, to be honest. The fans were about to riot. This one did not go over well, okay? If I would have had to list the Cardinals' top 5 needs, tight end would not have made that list. To be honest, tight end would not have made a top 10 list of their needs because it's not a need. They traded for Zach Ertz last year. They have, what's his name, Connor Williams or Max Williams, one of the two. He's a good young tight end. They don't need a tight end whatsoever, remotely. I don't care if they thought he was the best tight end in the draft. I didn't think so, but it's not a need. Why would you draft it? This might be the most questionable pick we've talked about yet, to be honest. I mean, the fans were in an uproar. Any comment I saw trying to defend this pick just got immediately ratioed and bullied into submission. So, yeah, this is not a great one here with their first pick. And it looks even worse when you realize that if there are no injuries next year, no major injuries to the tight end position, he'll be their third stringer next season. He may hardly play. So, this is a very questionable pick to start off their actual, drafted players. It does get better though, because with their first of their 2 third-round picks, okay, at number 87, they took edge rusher out of San Diego State, Cameron Thomas. We just talked about they lost Chandler Jones. They needed an edge rusher right here, okay? So I cannot fault them for this one, and the fans liked it as well. Thomas put up some fucking monster stats last year as a junior. 71 total tackles, 20 and a half tackles for a loss, and 10 and a half sacks. Good lord. Those are beastly stats. And the Cardinals need all of those to translate, okay? For him playing, next to the human body cast, also known as J.J. Watt. 13 picks later, number 100, they took defensive end Majai Sanders out of Cincinnati. Yeah, the Cardinals just said, fuck cornerback, okay? They went straight D-line here. And I love it. Don't try and look up his stats because you will not be able to spell his name correctly. So let me just tell them to you. They don't jump out at you like Cam Thomas's do, okay? In 42 games at Cincy, he totaled 24 and a half tackles for a loss, okay? And 13 and a half sacks. Now, when I saw these at first, I was really confused. okay? But thankfully, there were some Cincinnati fans in the comments that came to his defense. They said he was getting double and triple teamed nearly every play, okay, and he still managed to get into the backfield more times than not. I cannot verify this, but I don't really see why they would lie about it. And I'm going to take their word for it because I do think this was another good pick for the Cardinals in the third. If Cameron Thomas doesn't pan out, you got Majai Sanders. If when J.J. Watt gets hurt, you can just pair both of them on either side. So I like it. I think it was two picks in the third, two good picks. So look, this was the core of their draft right here because they did not pick again until the sixth round. Okay, I will briefly talk about their sixth round pick here because at number 201 they took USC running back Keontae Ingram. He put up 1,000 yards total, 5 touchdowns, and they needed a backup running back. Okay, James Conner solid. They needed a backup. They took one in the sixth round. Okay, good job. But if you're keeping track, that makes 4 straight picks where they did not draft an offensive lineman or cornerback. Last year, Kyler got killed and they got burnt. So I don't really understand the thought processes of this draft here for the Cardinals. Thankfully, with their next 4 picks, they took 2 linemen and a cornerback just to appease the fans. And to be honest, I still feel some way about these picks because at least 3 out of these 4 guys, I can guarantee you, they will not be on this team in 4 years. So, drafting team needs in the 6th and 7th round, you're just paying lip service to it. You're not actually spending any premium picks, which have a good chance to convey into good players. You're not using those picks to address offensive line or cornerback. You're using the 6th and 7th rounders, which may not even make it through training camp. So that made me feel some type of way here. This draft, it's a tough one to grade, man, because it depends on how much I value the Hollywood Brown trade with their first round pick. Because if I'm just evaluating that move, I'd give it an A. If I'm just evaluating the tight end pick in round 2, I'd give it an F. So I'm in a tough spot. I do like the back-to-back edge rushers in round 3, okay? Not a whole lot to speak about in the later rounds. I'm gonna give it a C plus. If they would have drafted a good cornerback or offensive lineman in that second round instead of the tight end, we could be talking about B plus or A minus range even. Okay, this whole draft could have flipped on its head, but that tight end, I don't, man. It's baffling to me that they take a tight end in round 2. But yeah, a C plus, man. The Hollywood trade carries this draft, okay? But I can't pick that as my favorite draft pick, so I'm gonna go with Cameron Thomas at number 87 in the third round. I saw some predictions pre-draft that he was gonna go in the second round. Okay, so that is good value there for the Cardinals to get him in the middle of the third. For my least favorite, do I even gotta say it, man? Fucking Trey McBride in round 2. Not only did they not need a tight end, but they passed on several offensive linemen and cornerbacks, which they desperately did need. So, okay, I'm not trying to hate. Maybe in 3, 4 years, he'll be the next George Kittle, and I'll look like a fucking fool, but still. Terrible pick in the moment. Yeah, man, Cardinals fans, they were definitely stressing, but they traded up for Hollywood Brown. They picked up a couple pass rushers, so the DeAndre Hopkins trade hurts them, but you know, they should be able to sleep a little easier after this draft, in my opinion. Up, we got the Los Angeles Chargers. Sorry. Now look, the Chargers had one of the most exciting free agencies out of any team in the league, okay? And the Chargers fans were talking crazy, okay? All 14 of them saying that this is their year. Free agency went their way, the draft went their way, they're ready. So let's break it down, man. In free agency, they got Pro Bowlers like J.C. Jackson and Khalil Mack to shore up the defense. Those are the type of moves you make you can make when your quarterback is still on his rookie contract now. The Chargers, okay, I'll admit, they have a real Super Bowl window here, okay? They got to take advantage of it. So let's see how these draft picks help them reach that goal. With the 17th pick in round 1, the Chargers took offensive lineman Zion Johnson out of Boston College. It's never exciting whenever a team drafts an O-lineman in round 1, okay? But this is exactly what the Chargers needed here. I wouldn't have minded if they would have took a receiver here, having, a deadly wide receiver trio, and then once Keenan Allen, they move on from him, you have whoever they would have drafted at Mike Williams, but the draft didn't shake out that way. All the good receivers were gone by this point, and you didn't want to be like the Commanders and ended up reaching on somebody, you know, just because you had to take a receiver. So, I mean, you came away with a good offensive lineman in Zion Johnson, okay? You didn't reach, and according to a lot of people and myself, he was the best offensive lineman available here. So, good job here at number 17. I believe their second round pick that they had originally, it was using the Khalil Mack trade. Since it did not happen on draft night, it does not count towards the draft grade. So we will just move on to their third rounder. At number 79, they took J.T. Woods, the safety out of Baylor. The rich get richer as far as the Chargers secondary is concerned. 4 years of experience for J.T. Woods on an elite Baylor defense. 8 picks in the last 2 seasons, as well as 103 total tackles. When you have 6 games, okay, against Mahomes, Russell Wilson, and Derek Carr, you need as much depth as possible at defensive back. Fans were happy, and I like this one as well. At number 123 in round 4, Chargers fans welcomed running back Isaiah Spiller out of Texas A&M. Okay, they've been begging for a running back to complement Austin Eckler for years now, and they finally found it here in round 4. The definition of consistency at Texas A&M, putting up at least 1,100 total yards and 7 total touchdowns in each of his first 3 seasons in the SEC. His yards per carry never dropped below 5.5, okay? They didn't run him into the ground, like with over 250 carries a season like they do with some backs in college. He should be ready to go. Year 1 in LA, getting at least, 8-9 carries a game. They should use him a lot, hopefully, and this is a steal here in the 4th round. He was definitely a top 5 back in the class, and in my opinion, he was a top 3 back. So to get him here in the 4th it was a wonderful pick by the Chargers. So great draft so far. It doesn't end here because with their 5th rounder, number 160, they took run-stuffing defensive tackle Otito Ogbonia from UCLA. At this point in the draft, I look at 5th round picks as the picks you use on guys to either give you some depth at a position you need or guys who have a super high ceiling, boom or bust potential. And Chargers fans and I both think Tito checks both of those boxes because he gives you the immediate depth you need at nose tackle on the Chargers defense, and maybe in the future he can even rush the passer. So I like this one here. I think the Chargers fans would have liked some linebacker depth, but, I still think it's solid. This is going to be the last pick we talk about for the Chargers because I think it was an absolute steal right here in the 6th round for the Chargers to get Jamari Sailor, offensive lineman out of Georgia at number 195. I saw him mocked in the 2nd and 3rd rounds in the months before the draft, so I have absolutely no clue how he fell this far, and quite frankly, I don't care, because the last I saw him, he was pancaking the best player in this draft, Aiden Hutchinson, during Georgia's first playoff game. This was the best pick the Chargers made the whole draft, in my opinion. We're not going to talk about the next three picks they made because, I want to get straight into telling y'all that Jamari Sailor is my favorite pick they made. There is a good chance he will be their starting right tackle by the end of this season. So to get that in the 6th round is incredible. So he is my favorite pick. Okay, for my least favorite, I guess you could say it was J.T. Woods in round 3, just because, I mean, they could have taken a linebacker, but I don't even say that confidently because, if anything, when JT Woods is in the game, you could just move Derwin James down to linebacker for a few extra snaps. So no one's going to be that mad at that, okay? So if this was the worst pick they made, all that does is justify me giving the Chargers an A for this draft because I am. For a Super Bowl team, or a team that's trying to compete for a Super Bowl, I think this draft does everything you could ask for. It gives them depth where they need it, it shores up some of their holes, and I think they're really going to go forward and try and win their first championship here. So I think an A fits them, and all 7 Chargers fans are going crazy in LA right now. So good for them. Y'all, we're going to talk about the Tyreek Hill-less Kansas City Chiefs. Look, the Chiefs needed a great draft right here, man. With all the starters who walked out the door at free agency and who they traded. And yeah, I'm not even going to lie to y'all, man. They got it. The Chiefs had an amazing draft, so let's get right into it. At number 21, the Chiefs took cornerback Trent McDuffie out of Washington. They started out on fire out of the gate. Once you got past Sauce Gardner and Derek Stingley, Trent McDuffie was clearly the best cornerback in this draft class, no debate. 6 passes defended last year in his redshirt sophomore season. Yes, sophomore season last year. The man is a true lockdown cornerback. The only concerns with him are his size and his arm length. But clearly, I mean, if those were any real issues to NFL scouts, he would have fallen a lot further, okay? The Chiefs actually had to trade up to number 21 to draft him here, okay? And the Chiefs fans, they knew how much help that defense needs, especially now that they lost Honey Badger. So they understood this one, they liked this one, and so did I. At number 30 in the first round, they got edge rusher out of Purdue, George Carloftus. A lot of people thought Carloftus was going a lot earlier in the first. He fell, to be honest, here to 30. So, I mean, he's one of the best pass rushers in the draft. I mean, he's 6'4", 275 pounds. He put up 29 tackles for a loss and 14 sacks in his 26 games at Purdue. A day one starter for the Chiefs right away, and they definitely need him. I mean, look, they had to acquire a cornerback, an edge rusher, and a receiver going into the draft, and they knocked it out the park here with their 2 first picks, okay? I think both Mcduffie and Carloftus fell to them. So it was not a reach by any means, okay? They fell right into their lap, and they took the best players available. With the 54th pick, round 2, they took Sky Moore, wide receiver, Western Michigan. Wow. Every pick so far the Chiefs have made is exactly what they needed. They lost Tyreek. Let me tell you why. The guy they picked up has a chance to replicate some of Tyreek's production, okay? He put up 1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns last season. He's undersized. He's a speedy receiver from a small name school. Yeah, the Chiefs think they slick. You're trying to replace Tyreek in not even a month, okay? In all seriousness, they needed a wideout to fill out the roster because not only did they lose Tyreek, but they also lost Byron Pringle, they lost Demarcus Robinson, they brought in Juju, so it's a very new wide receiver room, okay, in Kansas City. So we'll see how they look next year, but they took the best wideout available here. Okay, so no complaints from me or the fans. The fans were ecstatic by this point, okay? And 8 picks later, at number 62, they took Cincinnati safety Brian Cook. The Chiefs lost both their safeties in free agency this year. So what do? Just like every other pick before this one, they draft a good player to fill an immediate need. I mean, it's like they're speed running, getting an A-plus grade according to my rankings. Cook played his first full season last year during Cincy's Cinderella story of a season, and he put up 96 total tackles, 5 tackles for a loss, 2 picks, 9 passes defended, in a loaded Cincinnati secondary, mind you. So he was making plays all over the field. And should he get the chance to start right away, like I believe he should, I think he's going to do great, okay? And the Chiefs have done a better job than anyone so far. We've talked about going back to back to back to back with day one starters. with all of these picks so far, and impact players too. Not just guys who, they're just there, okay? These guys will be making plays for the Chiefs. So, great job so far. In the third round at number 103, they took Wisconsin linebacker Leo Chenal. Chiefs fans were in disbelief at this point. Every single pick was just a big fuck you to the rest of the NFL. 4 picks out of 5 so far to the defense, and they are all incredible. Leo Chenal, man, the astrology bitches are going to love that one. He had 115 total tackles, 18.5 tackles for a loss, 8 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. If we're just going off the stats here, he could have been drafted in the first round as an edge rusher, okay? Or as a Michael linebacker. His pass rushing potential is off the charts, okay? I don't know how he slipped this far, okay? The Chiefs are murdering this draft. They could have picked all fullbacks and long snappers past this point here, and I still would have given them an A, okay? So, with the 135th pick in round 4, they took another cornerback here, this time out of Fayetteville State, in Joshua Williams. I have no clue where Fayetteville State is. All I know is that the Chiefs needed cornerbacks. They drafted one. Won't hold anything against them for this pick here. I don't care if Fayetteville State is in the state penitentiary conference. All I know is that Joshua Williams is a 6'3" press corner, and the Chiefs could use him. Turns out it's an HBCU, so disregard the state penitentiary joke. Next up, we got Darion Kennard, the offensive lineman out of Kentucky, with their second pick in the 5th round here. They actually traded up to take this guy, so they saw something in him. They liked him. It can't go wrong with offensive line depth when you got the best quarterback on the planet, so he may even start day 1 at right tackle, so I'm finding starters in the 5th round, I guess, so I'll be good for them. They had 3 7th-round picks, 2 of them were DBs, so bringing the grand total up to 5 defensive backs in one draft class for the Chiefs. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that at least 2 of them will be full-time starters for years to come, and that's a freezing cold take, okay? Let's not waste any time here. The Chiefs get an A+, okay? Simply the best draft we've seen so far, and it's not close. I mean, I want y'all to understand the difference between, I give the Chargers an A, right? Their draft class is not close to the Chiefs. The Chiefs, bro, for the favorite pick, I could go anywhere here, but I'm going to go with Leo Chenal in the 3rd round. The man was a straight menace to Big Ten offenses all year long. There's no way he won't end up being worth a 3rd round pick, okay? Worst pick, only because I have to pick one, but I guess I'll go with Joshua Williams, the cornerback in the 5th round. It's a 5th round pick, though, so even if he sucks, bro, nobody's going to care. But 6'3" cornerback with a 4.5, 340-yard dash, that just feels like burnt toast waiting to happen. But still, bro, this was the best draft we've seen so far. The Chiefs fans were ecstatic the whole night, so good for them. A+ so far, man. Good job, Chiefs.